What's going on, guys? Welcome to episode 5 of the Marvelathon. Today is the Avengers. I watched the Avengers today, the first one from 2012, and we're finally here. This is the movie I was really excited to watch all along out of these first few movies, and it definitely didn't disappoint. This movie's amazing. Briefly, I want to talk about my history with this movie, just so you guys can kind of understand where I'm coming from. So, with the first 4 movies that I've reviewed, I didn't watch them when they came out. I was pretty young, and I didn't really. It's not that I was young. It's just that I didn't care. I didn't care about those type. At the time, all that really mattered to me was Star Wars. Star Wars was everything to me back then. I knew about Marvel, I knew about Iron Man, I knew about Captain America, all that stuff. I just didn't really care. But when this movie came out, I remember vividly, it was a school night, actually, which was very rare. It was a Wednesday night in the middle or early May, I don't know, 2012. My dad is like, hey, let's go watch the Avengers. He asked me and my brother, and I was like, whatever, sure. I don't remember my reaction, but I was like, okay. So we go and we see it, and my mind was blown because this was the first MCU movie I saw in the theater, and it really just kind of opened my eyes. I was like, this is the coolest thing ever, and I fell in love with the characters, with the story. I immediately fell in love. I was a Marvel fan. I remember going home that night and searching up new Marvel movies, and I saw that they're making an Iron Man 3 and that it was going to come out next year, and I was like, dude, it's coming out in 2013. That year sounds so futuristic. I remember that being a thought of mine. I remember thinking, like, dude, the year 2013 sounds so futuristic, and now that was 5 years ago, so time has flown. But yeah, I just remember falling in love with this movie. I didn't really know what was going on. I mean, I vaguely knew. The movie did a good job at explaining what was going on. And it wasn't too grand to where, like, there's just so much going on. And yeah, I remember walking out of the theater after we saw the after-credit scene with Thanos, and I had no idea who Thanos was, and my dad was explaining to me who Thanos was, what he was trying to do, and they're like, yeah, they're gonna hype him up to be like the big bad guy. He's probably gonna be the next bad guy in the next Avengers movie, which he wasn't until Infinity War. But so, like, I was so new to this, and I immediately became very interested. And yeah, that's kind of what this movie did for me. So I do have a nostalgic tie to this movie. So I'm gonna try to keep this unbiased, but it's the Marvelathon. I'm not a legit movie reviewer, so I'm not gonna sit here and be like, oh yeah, the Avengers. No, I'm gonna geek out about it because, you know, it's Marvel. So the Avengers is directed by Joss Whedon, who at the time did a really good job with this movie. Some of his recent works have not been so good, but this particular movie was fantastic, and the characters are just so good. The interactions is really where this movie is strong. There's one scene in particular that I love where they're all in this, like, control room area in the ship, and they're all just arguing, and all their personalities and egos are conflicting, and it's just, the character dynamics are amazing, and the script writers must have just been sitting there for hours just trying to figure this thing out, and it was perfect. I love the introduction of the Tony Stark, Steve Rogers dynamic that lasts throughout multiple movies. It's so good. And Loki's a really good villain. He's the first really good villain in the MCU at that point. He was the first, like, really good MCU villain. And I remember watching this for the first time. I was like, Thor and Loki talk really weirdly. Like, they talk like you'd read it out of, like, a Shakespeare book. I remember thinking that. And then, like, 15 seconds later, Tony Stark shows up and he's making fun of them for talking like Shakespeare. And I think that is one thing that this movie does so well, and that the MCU has always done so well, is that they take themselves seriously, but not too seriously to where it's like you roll your eyes, because, like, everybody was thinking, like, oh my god, nobody talks like that. Well, Tony Stark comes out of nowhere and he's like, yeah, they don't talk like that, and he makes fun of them for it, and it's a good joke, and it makes you laugh, it's just one reason why Marvel works. There's so many good moments in this movie. I think I'm just going to have, like, a montage right now of just every moment in this movie that I love. Yeah, let's do that. Ready, and...
big man in a suit of armor. Take that off, what are you?
Genius, billionaire, playboy, philanthropist.
Now might be a really good time for you to get angry.
That's my secret, Captain. I'm always angry.
I have an army. We have a Hulk.
Oh, I thought the Beast had wandered off.
You're missing the point. There's no throne. There is no version of this where you come out on top. Maybe your army comes, and maybe it's too much for us, but it's all on you. Because if we can't protect the Earth, you can be damn well sure we'll avenge it.
Puny God.
But I think hands down, the best of those clips is the one of them all standing there in the circle with the I think it's now iconic, the Avengers theme. I think it's up there with Star Wars. Like if somebody hears the Avengers theme and doesn't automatically recognize it, you're lying, because yeah, you do. That's literally like one of the most iconic themes now. The action scenes in this movie are so good. The battle scene in New York is just, it's so perfect. And I don't think they could have done it better. I really don't. I don't really have any gripes with this movie. It's just such a good movie. I'm trying to think if there's anything I have wrong with this movie. There are a lot of Dutch shots, just like in Thor. That's not necessarily a bad thing. There's less in this movie than there are in Thor. But it's still distracting, and it's like, what were they thinking? But, you know. Yeah, I don't think there's a lot of stuff I don't really think there's anything I could talk about negatively. No, there's really not. This movie's amazing, and I love it so much. This is the first MCU movie that really got me hyped to be a Marvel fan, and as time goes on, this universe really expands. This movie was very influential at the time. I just remember, like, after this movie came out, everybody knew about Marvel. Because for the first few movies, people heard about them, people watched them, but they weren't really, like, too invested. This movie is what really kind of expanded, made it mainstream, and just made it what it is now. And it really kind of changed the game as far as superhero movies go. You know, I don't think superhero movies have been the same since this movie came out. I think this movie has kind of set a formula that DC and other movies try to replicate, and most of the time doesn't work, because this was a lightning in a bottle situation. I mean, I don't think anybody saw this movie doing as well as it did. You know, they tried to recapture it with Justice League, and we all saw how that went. Because I just really think this movie did a great job at focusing on the characters. It let us learn the characters before it shoved them all into this situation, and it just made it so much more enjoyable knowing who these characters are and watching them interact with each other. And then just the battle scenes. You know, you can always have a good battle scene, but if you don't have good characters in the battle scene, you don't really care as much. And if you don't really have that punch to it, you don't really care as much. But yeah, so that's my review on the Avengers, guys. This movie is such an important movie to me. Yeah. I don't really have anything else to say. I've kind of said it all. If you like this review, if you're excited for Iron Man 3, I think is the next one, Iron Man 3, go ahead and like, comment, subscribe, do all that amazing stuff, and I'll see you guys in the future.